What would make you abandon one of Earth's most breathtaking countries? Picture this: pristine mountain ranges, crystal clear waters, and air so pure it feels like medicine for your lungs. New Zealand consistently ranks among the world's most livable nations, boasting world-class healthcare, exceptional education systems, and rock-solid political stability. Yet something shocking is unfolding. More than 600,000 New Zealanders have left their homeland. That's over 1 in every 10 citizens. These aren't desperate refugees escaping conflict or natural disasters. They're highly skilled professionals, educated workers, and ambitious young people voluntarily walking away from what the rest of the world calls paradise. This exodus rivals migration rates from war-torn regions, creating an economic puzzle that challenges everything we thought we knew about why people move. The tyranny of distance geography can be both a blessing and a curse, and New Zealand knows this better than most. With just 5.3 million people scattered across islands located thousands of kilometers from major global trade centers, this nation faces what economists call the tyranny of distance. Imagine trying to run a business when your nearest major market requires a 5-hour flight and crosses multiple time zones. This isolation creates a fundamental competitive disadvantage that shapes every aspect of the economy. Nearly any product or service that could be manufactured locally can be produced more efficiently, more cheaply. And at greater scale in Asia, closer to massive consumer markets and established supply chains. Take financial services as an example. Why would international corporations choose Auckland when Singapore offers superior connectivity to every major commercial hub in the Asia-Pacific region? Even companies seeking a regional headquarters typically select Sydney with its larger domestic market, its globally recognized currency, and better positioning for the entire Oceania region. Distance isn't just an inconvenience here. It fundamentally determines which industries can survive and thrive. Agricultural excellence. Limited opportunities. Here's where New Zealand's story takes an interesting turn. The same geographic isolation that hinders manufacturing and services has created perfect conditions for something else: world-leading agriculture. New Zealand has transformed farming from a basic necessity into a sophisticated, high-tech export industry worth billions annually. The country's exceptionally fertile volcanic soil, abundant rainfall, temperate climate, and cutting-edge farming technologies combine to create some of the planet's most productive agricultural land. Being positioned in the southern hemisphere provides a strategic advantage. Kiwi farmers grow premium produce during the northern hemisphere's off-season, when half the world's consumers face limited supply and prices peak. But here's the catch: modern agricultural technology has made farming incredibly efficient, meaning these billion-dollar operations require surprisingly few workers. Highly mechanized dairy farms, automated fruit orchards, and precision livestock management systems generate enormous economic value while employing minimal staff. Well-educated urban New Zealanders aren't lining up for agricultural careers anyway. The industry's relentless automation ensures those opportunities are increasingly scarce. This leaves a troubling gap in the nation's economic foundation. The housing trap. When agriculture can't absorb your workforce, what fills the void? In New Zealand's case, the answer is troubling: property. An astonishing half of the nation's entire economic activity revolves around residential real estate: buying, selling, renting, constructing, financing, renovating, and regulating houses. This concentration represents one of the highest rates of housing sector dominance in any developed economy. When so much national wealth derives from simply transferring land ownership, rather than creating genuinely new economic value, a dangerous cycle begins. Property prices climb relentlessly as speculation feeds on itself, pushing homes beyond the reach of ordinary workers. The paradox becomes painful. This sparsely populated country, with more sheep than people and vast open spaces, now suffers from some of the world's least affordable housing markets. Government interventions have tried to cool this overheated market, including banning foreign property purchases in 2018. Yet this policy carved out a massive exception for Australians, the single largest group of foreign buyers due to long-standing bilateral agreements that treat the two nations as practically one economic zone. Wealthy Australians continue snapping up retirement properties and investment homes in scenic regions like Queenstown, attracted by stunning landscapes without Australia's infamous deadly wildlife. plus significant tax advantages that help them avoid Australia's substantial property transfer fees. The opportunity desert high housing costs alone don't explain why young Kiwis leave in such numbers after all. Property is even more expensive in Australian cities where most of them relocate. The real driver is something more fundamental, a scarcity of meaningful career opportunities. When your economy concentrates heavily on agriculture that employs few people and property transactions that create limited professional advancement, what options remain for ambitious, educated workers seeking fulfilling careers? Unless you're content working in real estate services, property development, or the handful of other viable local industries. Professional growth opportunities simply don't exist in sufficient numbers. New Zealand experience is something typically associated with developing nations, brain drain. But this isn't poverty driving migration, it's prosperity seeking greater prosperity. The country's educated workforce gravitates toward opportunities across the Tasman Sea, as naturally as rural residents worldwide migrate toward cities. Specialized professionals, research scientists, museum curators, senior technology executives, specialist surgeons, university professors require large commercial centers with depth and scale to sustain their careers. Unfortunately for New Zealand, those centers exist primarily in Australian cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, not in Auckland or Wellington, which simply lack the population base and economic diversity to support the full spectrum of professional opportunities. The seamless migration highway what makes this migration particularly dramatic is how effortless the journey becomes. Australia and New Zealand maintain arrangements that resemble the European Union's freedom of movement, allowing citizens to live, work, purchase property, start businesses, access education across both nations with virtually no restrictions. These culturally and linguistically identical populations face essentially zero integration barriers. New Zealanders settling in Melbourne experiences less friction than EU citizens moving between member states with different languages and customs. Educational pathways accelerate this flow significantly. Australian universities offer tens of thousands of places to New Zealand students each year, treating them identically to domestic students for tuition purposes, and even extending government student loans to qualifying Kiwis. Prestigious medical schools, competitive engineering programs, and well-funded research institutions draw thousands of talented young New Zealanders annually, with many never returning home after graduation. This seamless educational and professional mobility transforms what might begin as temporary study abroad into permanent relocation, especially when superior career prospects, higher salaries, and greater industry diversity await immediately upon graduation. The border becomes practically invisible, making the decision to stay in Australia after university as simple as choosing which neighborhood to live in. Can paradise retain its people? Reversing this exodus presents formidable challenges, but the situation isn't hopeless. Restricting mobility with Australia remains politically impossible, roughly 10% of New Zealand. An entire population currently lives across the Tasman and would vigorously oppose any policies complicating their trans-Tasman lives. The two nations rank among Earth's closest allies, sharing defense commitments, intelligence partnerships, and deep cultural bonds that make antagonistic policy shifts diplomatically unthinkable. Genuine solutions require making New Zealand itself more rewarding for young professionals through meaningful economic diversification, improved career pathways, and housing affordability reforms. The government maintains relatively low debt to GDP ratios compared to other developed nations, providing fiscal space for transformative infrastructure investments, research, and development incentives, and targeted industry development if political will emerges. Perhaps most importantly, New Zealand possesses intangible assets that money cannot easily replicate: extraordinary natural beauty, exceptional personal safety, political stability, environmental quality, and work-life balance that attracts billionaires, entrepreneurs, and remote workers worldwide. These competitive advantages, while difficult to quantify in traditional economic terms, represent genuine strengths in an increasingly mobile global workforce that values quality of life alongside career advancement. Thank you for watching Minecrafted. If this exploration of New Zealand's migration paradox opened your eyes to the complex forces shaping modern economies, please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. Have you experienced similar brain drain in your own country? Or have you faced the choice between staying in a beautiful place or chasing better opportunities elsewhere? We'd genuinely love to hear your perspective and personal stories in the comments below. Join our growing community to discover more fascinating deep dives into how geography, economics, and human ambition intersect to shape our world in unexpected ways. Your engagement and insights help us create content that challenges assumptions and reveals the hidden forces driving global change. Until next time, keep questioning everything you thought you knew about paradise, opportunity, and what truly makes a place worth calling home.